Hi, ladies. Thank you for tuning in to another episode. I do want to apologize in advance because my voice is cracking. I am getting a cold. It's just that time of year, unfortunately. So, you guys stay warm and bundled up and just take care of yourselves. So, today I wanted to talk about the unique opportunity that single mothers have in raising our sons to be respectful, appreciative, and just overall different from the type of males we see out here today. And when I discuss this with other women, one of the things that do come up that we notice a pattern on, or of rather, is how a lot of the problematic men that we've dated, that we've known, how their mothers have coddled them to the point that they aren't even in a position to even take care of themselves. And we already know that the relationship dynamics between black men and black women are strained. We already know that. We know that the disparity between income levels and education levels is something that plays a role. We know that sexism definitely plays a role. The hatred of blackness, especially the hatred towards dark-skinned black women. And I'm going to say this with all of my heart and soul. Yes, as black women, we all get the brunt of racism, but we all do not experience colorism the same. Okay, so when dark-skinned black women talk about their trials and dealing with people within their own community, that also goes to show how much self-hatred, how this runs so deep among people in our own community. And it's something that they, en masse, refuse to heal. But also, another reason why the dynamics are strained is because there's a difference in how our community as a collective raise our sons and daughters. Our girls are often labeled early on as fast-tail girls, and they are also labeled as being fast, that Jezebel stereotype. It starts early, and then it carries on, for black girls throughout our lifetimes for the most part. And not only that, our black girls are groomed early on to cater to the needs of their family. They are groomed early on to be servants, not to be individuals who are complex. They're not regarded as individuals who are multidimensional. Their humanity is completely stripped away from them early on because they are seen as a servant to the black community as a whole. Now, compare that to how we treat our boys. We favor our boys. We have families who will get ecstatic over the birth of their sons. Even when, a mom just figures out, or the doctor tells her that she's about to have a boy, family already jumps for joy. The boy hasn't even came out of the womb yet. That conditioning that we have starts that early. It starts before the child is even born. Boys are often exempt from household chores that are deemed quote unquote feminine. And the heavy lifting is left to the girls. They are the one who help cooks. They are the one who cleans. They are the one who take care of the younger siblings. The heavy lifting is often left to the girls. And also with boys, a key thing is they are afforded the opportunity to engage in sexual exploration without being labeled and without having to deal with the backlash and consequences of their within their community. if a girl does the same thing, she's automatically labeled as a slut or as a whore, and that label follows her throughout her lifetime. She doesn't get to heal from that. Everybody remembers, oh, the girl who got pregnant in her teens. Nobody remembers who the father is, because he gets to slide out and do his own thing. He gets to be released from any responsibility. As a society and as a community, we have we have provided the conditions for these young men to do that. We have provided the conditions for them to neglect their responsibility. We enable them. And so what we really have is the case where society has placed maleness and masculinity on such a high pedestal that we end up teaching our sons concepts that are detrimental to not only them, but most certainly to our girls. If you just think about the ridiculous things that we teach our boys, do you really think that them relying on women for basic things like cooking and cleaning is a sign of leadership? I mean, you don't even, have to have a good grasp on a lot of the more intricate things of life. I'm talking about basic stuff where we have absolved our boys from learning, cooking, cleaning, how to balance a checkbook. If they can't lead that, if they can't put if they don't have enough self-control to put their own lives in order, how on earth can we trust them to lead a household? We need to start making sure that when we talk to our boys about leadership, when we talk to our boys about quote unquote being the head, that we need to ask them, or at least make sure they're thinking about this question. What are you doing to position yourself as a leader besides claiming maleness? They need to know what leadership truly is. And we have given them just so many avenues to really just be mediocre, to do things subpar, to just be accepted because they exist. That this breeds the sexism that a lot of our girls and women have to deal with when they get older. So, and so when we look at the dichotomy between femininity and masculinity, according to society, women have to prove their value. That's why we often get stupid questions like, can you cook? Can you clean? Can you provide emotional labor? Can you coddle and raise entire grown men? Can you work, grow an entire human in your body, give birth, and then come home and take care of the kids and prepare his meals, all while he's at home portraying this figure of masculinity? We put just so much burden on girls and women. But when a male is born, when we contrast that with masculinity, the way society have them positioned, they are born with inherent value. They don't have to do anything to earn it. It's just his for the taking. Boys are already born being favored, being placed on pedestals. They don't have to do anything to earn the title of man. They just walk into it. And this also really goes to say why we have such an issue in our community with getting them to do basic things, like being able to pay their own bills without help from Black women, taking care of their kids without needing to go to court for child support, just basic things, because we have taught them that their inherent value kicks in as soon as they're born. They don't have to do anything to prove themselves. And the sad thing, the kicker, is women can never really escape the need to prove themselves. society is always asking us to prove ourselves, even as we age. We can spend our younger years catering to the needs of ungrateful, misogynistic men. But when we hit our 30s, 40s, 50s, and we hit that period of time where we are healing from trauma, healing from relationships, and we are embracing being single because that is our healing. Our healing is coming through that. We are being detached and we're removing ourselves from relationships that does not serve us. Even when we get to that point, we are still asked, why are you still single? If you look at how the media portrays Black women and being single, it's almost as if, it's not even almost, they portray us really as not being worthy enough because we are not hitched. And so Black women have to constantly prove our worth. We have to constantly bring up statistics about how we are excelling in education, how we're excelling in the corporate field, how we're opening our own businesses and excelling in entrepreneurship. And we're trying to make this happen every single day. We got to bring up stats every single day. We have to prove that we are out here doing the thing. And if you look at Black men, what do they have to prove? Aside from just existing. So as women, we need to really ask ourselves, why do we participate in misogyny? Why is it that we value men more than we even value ourselves? That's all internalized misogyny is. You value another human being based on their gender more than you value yourself. Sis, you need healing. That's not normal. That's not healthy. And there is nothing that is more pronounced than when mothers raise boys, mothers raising sons that not only end up growing up to disrespect their own mothers, but they grow up to disrespect other women. Ladies, what are we doing? What are we doing? Why are we raising these boys to grow up to be essentially boys? Because this is not how grown, responsible men behave. This is not what grown, responsible men even do. And don't keep bringing up the whole, we need a 2-parent household and it's the single mothers thing. They just need a man in the house. No. A lot of these dudes out here already hold sexist and misogynistic views. A lot of them already hold these views. And it's always better for a child to have at least one healthy parent than 2 toxic ones, or 1 toxic one and 1 enabler. This is why I say single mothers, we are in a unique position to raise our boys to be better than the previous generations. Once we heal this internalized misogyny, we are in a position to raise healthy, responsible, caring, compassionate young men. And not to mention, Black men also have to resolve to do better for themselves. Like, they have to want it. We can't coddle them and beg them to change. They literally have to want it within their soul, with every fiber of their being. And until then, until they do want it, until they actively seek it, we must focus on ourselves and the role that we play in our kids' lives. And when I do podcasts or episodes, rather, I try my hardest to give some solutions, some words of advice. And despite the fact that my son's father is a deadbeat, he is not in my son's life at all. I'm grateful for my father who stepped up and became a role model for my kid. And there are things that I learned in raising him as a single mother that had an impact on my son growing up to be respectful, responsible. I think one of the biggest compliments I ever have gotten was when his before and after care sitter texted me, and she said, "Miss Williams, there's something I need to talk to you about." And at first I panicked a little bit because, as a parent, you want to make sure your kid is on the up and up. They're doing what they need to do. They're not misbehaving. And she could hear the trepidation in my voice. And then she said, "I just wanted to assure you, no, nothing is wrong. Steven tells even the other kids, he even tells them that, my mom expects for me to behave a certain way. My mom expects for me to not embarrass her." And that was one of the best compliments that I think I could get as a parent, because my son gets it. He gets that even when his mother is not in the room, even when his mother is not with him, he is to respect other women. He is not to act a fool. So here's the things I learned in raising my kid. And some of these gems, my dad taught me as I began to heal and date and talk to men who are responsible. There are things that they taught me and how they raised their sons, how they raised their sons to be responsible men. So number one, you got to make your boys responsible. You have to set boundaries in the home. They should not be prohibited from doing chores that are deemed as quote unquote feminine. They should be held responsible. Hold them to the highest standard. They have homework. They need to sit and get it done before they go play games. They need to do the homework before they get on the phone with their friends. The minute you start to see that they're hanging around with someone who is disrespectful, who acts like they don't respect their elders, because essentially the kids who don't respect their elders, they learn all of that from home. Once you spot that, address it. You got to cut it. You got to cut the cord. You can't let someone else's kids influence your kids and attempt to raise them in a way that is detrimental to them. Hold them to the same standards that we hold to our girls. We talk to our girls all the time about abstinence. Now, we all know that the teachings of abstinence really does little to curb teen pregnancy rates. We know this. But even if we go so far as teaching them to be just as responsible with birth control and other birth control methods, and how to ensure that the person that they're with is also practicing safe habits as well, when we get them into the mindset and the state of mind to want to be responsible enough to take care of themselves, their health, and the health of the person that's with them, they are less likely to go around playing on girls, sleeping with a bunch of girls, because they understand that when you're intimate with someone, there's responsibility attached. So we have to raise them and hold them to the same standards that we do for our girls. Get them involved with responsible men. Like, if there's a club in your community and the person who runs the club is the pillar of their community, this person to not just talk the talk, they walk the walk. They respect other women. It may take some hunting to find these. It may take some hunting to find these mentors, but I can guarantee you, sis, they're out there. Once you spot them, see if they have a program. Maybe after church, you can ask if that elder or that person that you respect and admire so much can just have coffee with you one day and just chat with your son, or have lunch with you and your son, or invite them to your son's football game or basketball game. Get them involved with men of standard, because when you get them involved with those type of men, those good characteristics will rub off on them. And I think the biggest thing for me personally is getting our boys to understand the value of women outside of what women can do for them. They should understand that women should be respected. Why is that? because women are human beings. That's just the bare minimum right there. And a lot of these boys even fail to do that. That's the bare minimum. Our standards for these boys are literally on the floor. We have to do better. No caveats, no religious indoctrination, just respect women, period. And once we can get our boys to see the value in other human beings, once we get them to respect others and respect themselves, I truly believe that we can begin to change this dynamic. But there is no sense in women or even the community as a whole trying to push this fantasy of a 2-parent household curing all evils. It won't. I can promise you that it won't. There are plenty of people who grew up in 2-parent households and one parent was abusive or both were abusive, and they can tell you in a household that is toxic is just as bad, as anything else, really. It's horrible when you have to grow up in a toxic environment, and we don't want that for our kids. So the best thing we can do as single mothers is to utilize the resources that we have at our disposal so we can give our boys and our girls a good life. We owe our children that. We owe it to them to teach them a new way of being. We owe it to them to demonstrate healthy dynamics within a relationship. So when they get older, they know how to treat others and they know what they should not tolerate themselves. So that's all I wanted to say about that. If you're listening, thank you so much for your support. It's just really important that we begin to put the needs of our children first and not allow rhetoric to dissuade us from doing what we know has to be done. We have to address sexism in our community head on. It will not get better until we do it. Thank you again for listening. And until then, have an awesome week.